Hi guys, today we're going to read The Chalkbox Kid. So this was, I think, the very first book that I ever read, like all by myself. And it still is one of my favorites. This is the copy I had when I was a kid. And I just thought I would share it with you because it's a fun little story. It has some illustrations on the chapters, so I'll try and hold those up when they pop up so that you can see them. Chapter 1, The Room. Let's get started. Gregory heard the clock strike. It was an hour till midnight. His birthday would soon be over. He went to the door and looked out onto the street. "Shut the door," said Aunt Grace. "I thought I heard a car," he said. "Gregory," his aunt said. "The cold air is coming in." He shut the door and he went back and sat by her on the sofa. His tablet and paints and brushes were all out on the table, but he didn't feel like painting. He sat there and tried to watch the television with Aunt Grace. It had been a long day. So far it was his very worst birthday. He had wanted to go with Mother and Daddy. They were moving into another house, and he hadn't even seen it yet. "If you go with us you'll just get tired," Mother had said. "I want you to stay with Aunt Grace." He had thought she didn't remember what day it was. He had told her, "I'm 9 years old today." "I know," she had said, "and I'm sorry we can't have a cake or a party. There's just no time. We have to finish moving." He went to the door again, and this time the car was there. Mother was getting out. She came up to the door, and she had on old clothes, and she looked tired. "Hello, Grace," she said. "Thank you for keeping Gregory. Are you ready to go, Gregory?" He picked up his tablet and paints and brushes, and he was ready. They went out to the car. She sat up in front with Daddy, and Gregory got in the back. They drove across the city. Gregory went to sleep. When he woke up, they had stopped under a street light. A light shone on a house. "Is this it?" he asked. "This is it," said Daddy. Daddy had lost his job at the factory, and now he had a different job. That was why they had to move. The house was small, and it needed paint, and it looked as if it had grown out of the sidewalk. There was no yard at all. They went inside, and Gregory saw boxes and papers. He saw bare walls. "You'd better go to bed," said Mother. "Where?" he asked. She showed him a room. His bed was in it. His chair and table were in it too. He asked, "Is this mine?" "Do you like it?" she asked. "Oh, yes," he said. "It used to be a porch," she told him. "We had a wall put in, and the window." So there was something for his birthday, and that was better than cake and a party. "Go to bed now," said Mother, and she went out and left him there. He sat on the bed and looked at the room. It was not very wide, but it was long, and it was a big room for such a little house. He looked at the floor and the walls and the ceiling. He looked into every corner, and this was what he had always wanted, a room of his own. He heard the clock strike, and his birthday was over. It was the best birthday he had ever had. Chapter 2, Uncle Max. Gregory woke early. The day was coming in. He lay there and looked at the room that was all his. By the bed was the box that he and Mother had packed. His things were in it. He got up and began to dig in the box. He found his old yellow robe and put it on. His tablets and paints and brushes were on the table where he had put them last night. Without making any noise he went to the kitchen and brought back a cup of water, and he sat down at his table and began to paint. The paper in his tablet was too small, but he painted a red house that wasn't bad, and he painted a sunflower that was a little better. Mother came to the door. He asked, "Do we have any thumbtacks?" "What do you want with thumbtacks?" she had asked. "I want to put my pictures up," he said, and she brought him some tacks. He put the pictures up on the wall, and they looked good there, even if they were too small. Now the room looked like it was really his. He and Mother and Daddy had breakfast. "I'll make more coffee for Max," said Dad. Gregory asked, "Is Uncle Max coming here?" "He is," said Daddy. "Then I'm going out," said Gregory. "Where?" asked Mother. "Up the street," he said. "I don't know," said Mother. "Oh, let him go," said Daddy. "He just wants to see the new neighborhood. Isn't that right, Gregory? Don't you want to see the new neighborhood?" "Yes," said Gregory. He went out. The air was cold, but it felt good. It felt like spring. He walked up the street. It was Sunday morning, and not many people were out. He saw a grocery store, and he saw a few places that looked like garages or small factories. The next block over got better. There were more houses and trees. In the block after that came a school. It was the Dover Street School. Mother had told him about it. He would be going there. He walked a few more blocks, and then he went home. His Uncle Max was there. Uncle Max was 20, and he had a red beard, and he played guitar and made up songs. Most of the time he was out of work. "Well," he said in a loud voice, "here comes the great Gregory. Here comes the paintbrush kid." "Hello," said Gregory. He went to his room. The door was open. There was another bed in the room. There was a guitar on the bed. Mother called him into the kitchen. "Uncle Max will be with us for a while. He isn't working now and he needs a place to stay." Gregory looked at her. "It won't be so bad," she said. "It's not my room," he said. "It's his." "It's yours too," she said. But he knew how that would be. "Why don't you like your Uncle Max?" she asked. "He thinks he's important," said Gregory. "He is important," said Mother. "We all are." "He thinks no one is important but him," said Gregory. He went outside, and there was concrete all around the house. Even the wall across the back was concrete. There was a gate in the wall. It was painted green, an ugly green. And he could hear Uncle Max playing the guitar. He kicked the gate. He kicked it so hard that some of the paint fell off. Chapter 3. The New School. In the morning, Mother and Daddy got ready for work. She cooked in a restaurant, and he was a guard in the bank. Mother asked Gregory, "Do you want to go with your uncle? Do you want your uncle to go with you to the new school?" Gregory shook his head. "Don't you want someone to help you get started?" she asked. "No," he said. "I've done it before." He went to school. He found the office. A woman sent him to room 3, and that was his room. His teacher was Miss Perry, and she said to the class, "We have a new boy in our room. His name is Gregory." His teacher asked him where he had come from. "North Lake," he said. "Is that here in the city?" she asked. "Yes, it's a very big school," he told her. "It's bigger than this." He liked Miss Perry. He thought he was going to like Dover Street School. He began to learn the names of the boys and girls. At noon a boy named Vance came up to him on the playground. Vance was the biggest boy in room 3. "Did you say you went to North Lake School?" he asked. "Yes," said Gregory. "What made you say it's a big school?" said Vance. Some of the other boys and girls had come by. They were listening. "It is a big school," said Gregory. "No, it isn't," said Vance. "I've been there, and it's not as big as this." "It looks bigger," said Gregory. "Well, it isn't," said Vance. "You like to brag, don't you?" "I wasn't bragging," said Gregory. "I just said it was bigger. I didn't say it was better." He stopped. No one was listening. Vance and the others had gone away. After school, he walked home alone. Uncle Max was there, watching television. Gregory went into the room that was his and his uncle's. There were pictures on the wall he had never seen before. They were big red and black posters of race cars. Gregory's pictures were nowhere in sight. He went back into the front room. "Where are my pictures?" he asked. The television was turned up loud. Uncle Max turned it down. "What'd you say?" "Where are my pictures? Where are they?" said Gregory. "They're still there," said his uncle. "You put your posters over my pictures?" said Gregory. "Don't you like my posters?" asked Uncle Max. "No, I don't," said Gregory. "That's too bad," said Uncle Max, and he turned the television up again. Gregory was angry. He wanted to go into the bedroom and tear down his uncle's posters, but that would only make things worse. He went out back and tried to find something to do. He shook the gate in the wall, and there was a wire that held it shut. He began to work with the wire. He worked with it until it came loose, and then he opened the gate, and on the other side was part of a building that had burned. Only one room was left. It had 3 walls and no roof, and there were bricks all over the floor. It looked as if nobody had been there for a long time. Gregory went in. He walked through a spider web and dust. He piled up some bricks and sat down on them. He leaned back and looked at the sky. It was peaceful there, and he began to feel better. He was not quite so angry now. Chapter 4. The Burned Building. In room 3 there was a girl named Ivy. She was small, with long black hair. She was shy, and when she talked it wasn't much more than a whisper. There was something wonderful about her. Gregory wasn't sure what it was, but it was there in her face and the way she held her head. It was in the pictures that she made. 3 times a week they had art class in room 3. Once Gregory said to Ivy, "Your pictures are good." She looked at the picture he had just made. It was a castle. He didn't like it much. He had wanted to put a flag on the top, but he had made the castle too big, and there was no room for a flag. Ivy said nothing at all, but she touched the picture. He wasn't sure whether she liked it or not. Since his first day, things hadn't gone well for him at the new school. But after a week, they were about the same. Oh, I skipped a line, sorry. Since his first day, things hadn't gone very well for him at the new school. He had hoped they would get better, but after a week, they were about the same. He thought Miss Perry liked him. He didn't know about the others. Things weren't going so well at home either. Uncle Max was always there. He was always watching television, or going plink, plink, plink on the guitar, or sleeping in their room. It was his room more than it was Gregory's, but now Gregory didn't mind so much. He had a place of his own. Every day after school he went out to the burned building. "Can't you find somewhere else to play?" asked Mother. "You'll get dirty there." "I'm cleaning it up," he said, and when he swept the floor he found little pieces of something white. He showed one of them to his mother. "It looks like chalk," he said. "It is chalk," she said. A few days later she told him, I found out about the burned building. The woman next door told me. It used to be a chalk factory. A man made chalk and tried to sell it to the schools, but he didn't do very well, and the place caught on fire and it burned, and the man just went away after and left." Gregory kept sweeping up more chalk. One day he found 2 wooden boxes under a pile of bricks. They were packed with sticks of chalk. The boxes were burned and broken, and some of the chalk was burned and broken too, but some of it was white and clean. The walls of the burned building were black from the fire. He tried making chalk pictures on them. He made a ship and an alligator. Mother came to the gate and called him in for dinner. "Do you want to see what I made?" he asked. "Some other time," she said. "Your dinner's getting cold." Chapter 5. A Party. Gregory's second week at the new school began with a party. It was for Ivy. Gregory asked the teacher, "Is this her birthday?" "Oh, I forgot to tell you," said Miss Perry. "You weren't here last month, so you don't know what happened." There had been an art show, she told him. The whole school took part, and there were more than 500 pictures in the show. "Who do you think won the grand prize?" she asked. "Ivy," he said. "Yes, Ivy," said Miss Perry. "She won the blue ribbon. The art teacher and I wanted her to have a special prize. We got it yesterday and we're giving it to her today. That's what the party's about." The prize was on the teacher's desk. It was a package wrapped in gold paper. The art teacher, Mrs. Cartwright, came in. She made a speech about the art show, and she called Ivy up front. "All the school is proud of you," she said, and she gave Ivy the package. Ivy held it in her hands, and then she did a strange thing. "Maybe this isn't for me." "What do you mean?" said Miss Cartwright. "I mean," Ivy said in her whispering voice, "there could be somebody better." "We think you're the best," said Miss Cartwright. Ivy took the package to her seat. "Aren't you going to see what it is?" said Miss Perry. Slowly Ivy took off the paper, and there was something inside that looked like a big book. But it wasn't a book. It was a leather case. Ivy opened it. She sat very still. All the other boys and girls were trying to see what was in the leather case. "Do you want to pass it around?" asked Miss Cartwright. Ivy passed the case around, and it came to Gregory. There were paints and brushes inside. There were pens and pencils. There was almost everything an artist could want, he thought. In the evening he told Mother about the party. "It must have been fun," she said. "Do you like school?" "It's all right," he said. "Have you made friends?" "Well, no," he said. There's this Vance in my room. He doesn't like me much, and he has a lot of friends, and I don't think they like me either. It takes a while to get used to a new school, she said. Don't worry about it. I don't, he said. But he did worry sometimes. It didn't seem like he belonged in his new school, and he wondered if he ever would. Chapter 6. Mr. Hiller. Mr. Hiller came to room 3. He was a friend of Miss Perry's. Mr. Hiller works in the nursery, she said. Who knows what a nursery is? One of the girls spoke up. It's a room for a baby. That's one kind, said Miss Perry. Mr. Hiller works in another kind. He works in a plant nursery. He sells plants and seeds, and he's here to tell us about them. Mr. Hiller talked about gardens, and as he talked, he drew pictures on the blackboard. He drew a bunch of lettuce with curly leaves. He drew a round head of lettuce. You can grow both kinds, he said. Then he talked about radishes. You can grow ones that are round and red, or you can grow ones that are long and white. He drew a picture of each kind. Then he talked about flowers. He drew a sweet pea on a vine pole. Next week, he said, I'll bring some plants and seeds to school. There will be some for each of you, and if you want, you can have your own gardens. That evening, Gregory told Mother about Mr. Hiller. I'm going to have my own garden, he said. Gregory, I don't think you can, she said. Why not? He asked. There's no place for one, she said. He looked outside. There was concrete all around the house. He looked at the burnt building. The floor was concrete there, too. Mother was right. He had no place for a garden. He wanted to plant things. He wanted to plant all the things that Mr. Hiller had drawn on the blackboard. The curly lettuce was what he liked best. He took a piece of chalk and drew a bunch on the wall. It was not very good. He drew another one. That was better. He drew more bunches of curly lettuce. He drew them all in a row. They looked very good. On Friday, that was Friday. On Monday, Mr. Hiller came back to school. He brought plants and seeds, and girls and boys chose what they wanted. Ivy chose sweet pea seeds. Gregory stayed in his seat. Miss Perry asked him, Don't you want any? No, thank you, he said. I already have a garden. Chapter 7. Gregory's Garden. Gregory's garden was in the burned building. It was in the room with 3 walls. He had rubbed out the ship and the alligator he had drawn. They didn't belong in a garden. He had made rows of vegetables across the walls. He had made sunflowers. He had even put in poles with sweet peas on them. He made a path. The path led to a pool, and he put a toad by the pool. Come and see my garden, he said to Mother. You know I don't like that burned building, she said. Can't you find a better place to play? It isn't ugly now, he said. I cleaned it up. He asked his father, Do you want to see my garden? Are there strawberries? Asked Daddy. I can put some in, said Gregory. You do that, said Daddy. Put in lots of strawberries, and when they're ripe, I'll come out and eat them with cream and sugar. Gregory didn't ask Uncle Max to look at his garden. Uncle Max would only laugh. At school, the girls and boys talked about their gardens. Miss Perry asked Gregory, How is your garden? It's all right, he said. Ivy was there, and he said to her, I have poles with sweet peas on them. Ivy said nothing. Miss Perry said, That's nice. What else do you have? Vegetables, he told her, and a path to a pool. She looked surprised. Your garden must be very big. It is, he said, and he had plans to make it bigger. He took the ladder out of the garage, and he set it up in the garden room. When he was on the ladder, he could reach the top of the walls. Now he could have trees in his garden. He made a pear tree and a walnut tree. He made vines to hang from the branches. He made birds' nests in the trees. One night it rained, and he lay awake. My garden will be gone, he thought. But it was not gone. Only a few of the vegetables washed away. He was almost late to school that morning. He told the teacher, I was working on my garden. The rain washed out some of my lettuce. You work on your garden a lot, don't you? Said Miss Perry. Yes, I do, he said. I may put in a fountain. Vance was listening. And at noon he asked Gregory, "So where's this garden with a fountain in it?" "I don't have a fountain yet," said Gregory. "You're always talking about your garden. Where is it?" asked Vance. "Back of my house," said Gregory. And afterwards he saw some of the boys and girls with their heads together. They were looking at him and talking. He thought they were talking about him. Chapter 8. Nothing at all. When Gregory went home from school he went straight to his garden. He was thinking about the fountain. The garden had spread all over the 3 walls. It would have to take something out to make room for the fountain, but he liked to change things. He started to the garage to get the ladder, and he stopped. There were footsteps outside of the gate. Someone laughed. "Shh!" The gate opened. The boys and girls came pushing in. They were all from room 3. Vance was their leader. He said, "We came to see your garden. Where is it?" "Where is it?" asked one of the girls. "This is it," said Vance. "Just a burned out building," said someone else. "Didn't I tell you?" said Vance. It's nothing at all." He turned and walked out, and the others followed him. The last one was Ivy. She looked back. She almost stopped, but then she was gone. That night Gregory wasn't hungry. There was chocolate chip ice cream for dessert, and it was his favorite, but he couldn't eat it. Mother felt his forehead. "It feels hot. I think you should be in bed." He went to bed and she sat with him. "Gregory, what's wrong?" he asked. He began to tell her. "Some of the others at school have gardens, and I said I have one too." "Why did you say that?" she asked. "Because I do have one. It isn't like theirs, but it's a garden." "The one you made in the burned building?" she asked. "Yes, and after school they followed me home, and they came to look, and they said—" "What did they say?" "They said it was nothing at all. They thought I was just bragging." "And weren't you bragging?" "No, I wasn't. Maybe I was pretending, a little, but I wasn't bragging. They think that they can do what they want. They can think what they want," he said. "I don't care." Chapter 9. Ivy and Richard. But it was hard for him to go to school the next morning. When he got there he walked around the block before he went in. He was the last one in room 3. Miss Perry smiled at him. He didn't think she knew, but the others did. He could feel them looking at him. Ivy sat up front. Miss Perry spoke to her. "Are you going to make us a picture today?" Ivy brought her leather case to school. She didn't answer Miss Perry. She stood up and came straight to Gregory, and she put the case down on his desk and then went back to her seat. The room went still. Miss Perry looked puzzled. She asked, "Do you want Gregory to use your paints and brushes?" "They're not mine," said Ivy. "Of course they are," said Miss Perry. "No," said Ivy. "They're Gregory's." "How could they be Gregory's?" asked Miss Perry. Because his pictures are better than mine," said Ivy. "I saw them on the walls, and they're better." Miss Perry looked more puzzled than ever. "What walls? Gregory, do you know what she means?" He told her. "She means the walls on the back of my house. I made a garden there, out of chalk." "Out of chalk?" said Miss Perry. "It's my garden," he said. "The one I talked about." "I see." Miss Perry came back and picked up the leather case. "This is yours, Ivy," she said. "It's part of your prize, and your name is on it. But if Gregory's pictures are good like you say, I can see why you want him to have a prize too." And she put the case down on Ivy's desk. The bell rang and school began. At noon Miss Perry said to Gregory, "I'd like to see these walls of yours. I'm sure Miss Cartwright would too." "When may we see them?" "Anytime," he said. "Today after school?" she asked. "Yes," he said. They walked home with him after school. Miss Perry and Mrs. Cartwright were with him when he opened the gate. Miss Perry said, "Oh." Miss Cartwright said, "It really is a garden." They looked at the walls and they talked to each other. They sounded excited. "The pictures he did in art were nice, but nothing like this," said Miss Cartwright. "I heard him say the piece of paper wasn't big enough. I think he needed a whole wall." Miss Perry asked him, "Where did you get the idea for this?" "From Mr. Hiller," he said. "I want him to see it," said Miss Perry. Mr. Hiller came to see the garden. "I'd like to take a picture of this," he said. "A big picture, and put it up in the nursery. May I bring my camera over tomorrow?" "Yes," said Gregory. On the way out, Mr. Hiller met Daddy. Daddy had just come home from work. "Are you this boy's father?" said Mr. Hiller. "Yes," said Daddy. "I just saw Gregorys' garden," said Mr. Hiller. "You must be proud." "Proud?" said Daddy. "Yes, proud," said Mr. Hiller, and he left. Mother came out. "Who was that?" "I don't know," said Daddy, "but I think we'd better see what's behind our house." They went out into the burned building. Gregory went with them. Mother looked at the walls. "Oh, Gregory!" "We'll have to get new clothes," said Daddy. "New clothes?" said Mother. "Yes, because our son is going to be famous and everyone will be looking at us." Mother called Uncle Max and he came out. He looked at the garden for a while. "First he was the paintbrush kid," he said. "Now he's the chalk box kid." It sounded like a joke, but Uncle Max wasn't laughing. That night when Gregory went into his bedroom, he saw all of his old pictures on the wall. "Where are your posters?" he asked Uncle Max. "I took them down," said Uncle Max. Things were different at school. Everyone he met was friendly. Even Vance was friendly. "There's a picture of your garden down at the nursery," he said. "Why don't you go see it?" The best thing of all happened one evening after school. Gregory was making a place for his fountain when Ivy came in to the gate and looked in. A little boy was with her. "This is my brother Richard," she said. "I brought him to see." Gregory had piled up rocks and made places to sit. The three of them sat on the bricks in front of the walls. Ivy whispered to her brother, "This isn't like our garden, Richard. It's different. This is someone else's garden." "I see it," said the little boy. Gregory told Ivy, "I'm putting in a fountain. Do you want to help me?" "I don't know. I might," she whispered. They were quiet and they sat there for a long time. And that's the end of the book. Ugh, I don't know why this one was my favorite growing up, but it was. I've read it so many times. It's such a sweet story. I used to get black construction paper and chalk and draw my own garden on paper, and I suggest that you guys should try it too. It's a lot of fun. Or you can go outside and write on the concrete of sidewalks and driveways that you might have. My driveway was asphalt, so it was all bumpy, so my pictures never came out right. But if you have smooth sidewalk or smooth driveway, you could try it there. Chalk was one of my favorite things to draw with. It still is. I use chalk pastels now because they're a little more grown up. But sidewalk chalk is pretty great too. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I'll see you back next time for something else. Until then, stay happy and stay safe. Keep drawing and have a good day. Goodbye, guys.